This is the experimental new floor of my truck bed camper. It is a 3/4 inch thick horse stall mat from the farm supply. In this video, I'm gonna talk about it and show you what I did. So one final detail I need to tend to here in the new camper build is some sort of floor without using wood. And I want to put something in here that will not be affected by water. One of the tricky details about the Frontier bed is that these corrugations in the bottom of the truck bed are extremely deep. They're the deepest corrugations of any truck bed that I've seen. They're like 3/4 of an inch. When I was at Expo PNW last week, I actually looked at a bunch of different trucks to see what they were using, what their solution was. Every other truck that I looked at, they've all got some sort of ripples in the bed, but none of them are anywhere near as deep as these are. So the problem that I ran into when trying various materials was that even a thick, like I tried like a 3/4 inch thick, like anti-fatigue mat that a lot of people are using, I still would sink down into these grooves. Now, because I don't want it to fill the entire bed of the truck, I only want something that is right where I'm gonna walk. I didn't want to spend $200-300 on something that's made for the Frontier. And as it is, there are very, very few options that are out there for the second gen Frontier. The suggestion that I received by far the most, both in comments and from people who came and looked at the truck at Expo, was to get a horse stall mat. They're thick rubber, they're readily available at places like Wilco, and for the amount of material you get, they are very, very affordable. And they have a couple of sizes. The smallest dimensions you can get are 4x6. I opted for 3/4 inch thick material because my thinking was that I would still feel these ripples, and so my idea was to cut off strips of the excess that I don't need, glue it to the bottom of the mat, so it would fill these gaps. But then I wanted something that I could still, easily pull out and hose off. Now this stuff is so thick and rigid that I may not even need to fill those gaps. I'm gonna cut it to fit and we're gonna see. The other thing that I did not anticipate is that it is really heavy. This 4 by 6 foot piece is really awkward to move around. It took 2 guys at Wilco to load it up into my truck. And like I said, I want the mat to just go into this area right here. I don't want it up underneath anything else because I want it to be easily removable. And I'm not walking there. I'm not walking there. I'm not walking there. I'm not walking back under there. I just need it where I'm gonna walk. You can find some amount of debate online about the best way to cut these, and some people talk about various power tools, but the most commonly agreed upon approach does seem to be just a good old box knife, load up a fresh blade. That's what I've done. Shallow cut, and then prop it up from underneath to help open the cut, and then go back a few more times to finish. So we're gonna give that a try. Boy, I don't know. I'm not making a lot of progress with each pass here. Okay, I thought maybe if I could get it up on the bed of the Mazda here, I could get this cut to open up better, and it did. It is opened up nicer there. And I probably should have gloves on for this, just in case. So what people say is that once you've got that initial cut, you should be able to just follow it with multiple passes. And I was watching people doing it with 1 inch thick mats rather than this 3/4. And yeah, that feels like it's making some progress now. that. It actually came out pretty clean. That's actually just fine. I was figuring this to be the back end anyway. Man. Oh, there's still a lot of weight. Let's figure out how much this weighs. $50. Okay. Wow. So that's a 3 foot by 4 foot piece of the 3/4 inch. And that thing weighs 50 pounds. So the whole 4 foot by 6 foot is 100 pounds. No wonder that was so awkward. So here I am in the process of trying to shed weight, getting rid of all that wood and going with plastic and a very more minimal build. And here I'm going to throw 50 pounds back in. But I feel this is going to be just unbeatable insulation, and it's perfect padding, and it can get wet. It's supposed to be very, very durable. I mean, horses can walk on this stuff. Actually, I forgot I need to cut the width down a little bit to fit in between everything there, so it actually will weigh a little bit less than that. Whew. Yeah, if you had to do a lot of them, you would probably want to use a power tool. Okay, and I reweighed the final piece, and we managed to shave a whopping, let's see, 4 pounds off of it. So 46 pounds instead of 50. Oh, wow. Even with that super thick, heavy thickness of rubber, I can still feel those gaps in there, which means maybe I do need to fill them, which means that's a whole lot more cutting. I think we're going to look at a power tool option. So online, I found suggestions for anything from a jigsaw to a skill saw, like a circular saw, to an angle grinder with a cutoff wheel, to a chainsaw for cutting this stuff. And we're going to give them all a try. No, I'm just kidding about the chainsaw. The skill saw seems the least likely to be successful, so I'm going to give that a try first to rule it out. Maybe if you had a blade with finer teeth, it could possibly work. I just got this blade. I'm not going to buy a different blade for this, so we shall see. And that just sort of bogs down, and it really smells like burning rubber. That is also not the solution. You could probably see the smoke that was burning pretty good, and it's flinging little bits of hot rubber everywhere. Okay, that was reasonably successful, but I really struggled to keep it going in a straight line. It really wanted to kind of swim. It may be okay for the strips that I'm going to put underneath that no one's going to see anyway. That are about 1.5 inches wide. They definitely can't be too wide, or they're going to ride up this curve and they're going to sit too high. Before we cut a bunch of those, let's make sure that actually feels better. There. Yeah. Oh yeah, that makes all the difference. Well, I was kind of hoping when I saw how heavy this stuff was that I wouldn't have to do that, but we'll go ahead and do it. It was a long, slow cut with the jigsaw, but we'll make it work. Well, the bed of the 2nd gen Frontier is pretty annoying because not only are these contours just ridiculously deep, it's not consistent. Like these 3 spots in the middle are narrower than these 2 spots here, and then this gap here is narrower than this like low spot here and this low spot here, and then there's extra little dips there. And it's just very inconsistent. So what I've done is I have cut all these different strips to fit the spaces. These just set in there, and then the mat is just sitting right on top of it. That mat is so heavy that I think it may be okay. I may not need to glue it all together, but I'll take it out on a couple of trips and we'll see how it goes. Well, it's not perfect, but it's a whole lot better than walking on the deep corrugations of the metal truck bed. I think this is going to provide a ton of insulation. Obviously, there's no concerns about moisture. It is pretty easy to pull it out if I need to rinse it off or, you know, let the bottom inside of the truck dry. It is a bit heavy, but it is manageable. I'll need to get out on some trails to see how well this all stays in place, or if I do need to glue this together into one complete unit. That remains to be seen. And I definitely considered some other products here. Things like those foam anti-fatigue mats. Also suggested to me were those sort of interlocking foam, you know, tiles that you can get. You piece them together and they're kind of squishy. I also found an interesting website where you could buy various thicknesses of rubber in bulk by, you know, whatever size that you need, and it was reasonably priced. And basically all of the options that I looked at would have required some way to, you know, fill the gaps in the corrugations of the truck bed. For most other trucks, you probably don't need to go to that trouble. I think a pad like this, and maybe even a 1/2 inch thick pad, would smooth out the texture of the truck bed and you'd be fine. It's just, this is just ridiculous peaks and valleys. For now, I think this will be the solution, probably for the rest of this year through the winter, and we'll see how it goes. If you have any questions about what I've done here, post them in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Oh, who are we kidding? I know we all want to see what the chainsaw is going to do to it. Definitely goes through wood better than it goes through rubber.